Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Today's guest is a familiar face, and he's been on, might make him co-host. He's been on so often lately. But he's back by popular demand. Also with us today is Jonathan Sahul, protege of Dr. Valentine's, and also a spirited young youth that has his head on right. I mean, it's amazing to see a youth have so much knowledge beyond his years. Welcome to the show, Dr. Philip Valentine, by popular demand. They keep crying out, where's Dr. Philip Valentine? Everybody wants to see you over and over again. I mean, you always come up with jewels. I think the most questions they ask about is the extraterrestrials that you speak about.
You mean after all these shows, I mentioned it once.
Just once?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what I want to hear about. That's what we talk the least about, the extraterrestrials.
Well, we haven't even gotten clear and a more succinct understanding of the terrestrials that's occupying this planet yet. So I'm a little bit leery about all of what it is that people are pushing for as far as what they think they need. I think the extraterrestrial thing is very interesting because Hollywood has made it what it is.
Right.
The fact that we haven't talked about spirituality. We had movies on spirituality and how to get spirituality and make spirituality exciting, as brothers and sisters in the underground community and the metaphysical community know it is. Then we probably have as much reactions to our speaking on religion versus spirituality and Christianity versus or essentially the ancient mystery system. As far as touching on extraterrestrials, well, we are extraterrestrials. Okay. We entities are nomadics, and as nomadics, we speak to and we deal with those, I guess, archetypal parts of ourselves that have connections to the stars, that have connections to other civilizations in the universe. So they're here, they're underground. In fact, that's where Saddam has taken most of his armies and most of the treasures that they thought they looted from Baghdad. Everything now is underground. The bodies continue to flow. I just got word that in the southern tip of South Africa, South African police and military authorities are finding hundreds of cremated bodies in special radiation protection bags washing up on shore.
Okay. Washing up on shore.
Washing up on shore. Obviously, they're dumping them, hopefully, into the ocean around the Cape, and the current is bringing them back up on shore. This is something, of course, can be verified on the web, but is not talked about over here. I spoke about the fact that we were waging a low-level nuclear war this last time, and that pretty much all the things that we are dealing with as far as the soldiers coming back is going to be worse than it was with Gulf War syndrome. There is going to be a incredible backlash, or what they call a blowback, in the Black Ops community. There's going to be an incredible blowback from this particular adventure over there in Iraq. And what we're going to see now are soldiers coming back, body bags that you're not going to have, you couldn't open up, can't open them up because of the toxicity of the soldiers themselves. That's getting ready to wash back up on American shores. But it may be a while before we are given any kind of clue, because I think that the American military and the media have been complicitous in maintaining a silence or a cloak over this. So that's the next thing. And of course, now that we are taking everything underground, all the militaries from around the world have their underground safe havens because the Earth is about to go through a serious climactic and cataclysmic change. And a lot of the governments, for instance, the United States government has an underground government in the mountains down in Virginia that has a president, has a vice president, and everything that is not the same vice president and president that is running the country.
Wait, this sounds like a movie. I mean,
yeah, well, all movies, in this case, in this country, they say that life imitates art, but actually in this country, art imitates life, and especially when it comes to
Amazing.
Hollywood. And Hollywood tends to give precursors, because notice that anytime Hollywood brings anything to the public mind for scrutiny, know that it's about 20 or 30 years old already.
Right, right.
So do you feel that Hollywood is putting out these movies to change the perception of what you're supposed to do as far as understanding who you are?
Well, I think it's kind of buffering and trying to give some kind of salve to say, okay, we told you so, or didn't you see the movie? You
Get
kinda,
people
you're
used to
supposed
the
bring
idea.
that, yeah. and
Okay.
get used to
Like
these,
Roswell, the TV series.
Yeah, Roswell and Sci-Fi Channel is excellent for
And of course,
cloaking a
yeah,
lot of
of course,
information.
of Spielberg and his movies.
Right.
Okay.
What's our ideal purpose? I mean, as far as, okay, we know the anti and what they're trying to do to stop us, but what is our purpose that they're trying to stop us from actually being or going to?
That's a good question. The actual purpose for governmental control on your actions, your activities, as well as your thinking process is to lock down the ability of the human species in this time period to move forward outside of the box of containment that the government and other ruling powers, the elites, especially the clerics of the Pope and the imams, the high imams, the high rabbis. I believe that this whole thing happening on the planet now, with all these wars and these threats of nuclear annihilation, are essentially being manipulated and motivated and actually instigated by the clerics of the planet.
Okay.
The
The Jesuits.
ruling clerics.
The
The
Jesuits.
Jesuits being the ones who are dealing from this point, which are probably the high clerics at this point.
Okay.
In fact, a movie came and went very quickly called Tetragrammaton. And was it Tetragrammaton or was it, no, Equilibrium. The movie came and went very quickly, but in there it told you all about who was actually ruling the planet, the Tetragrammaton
What was that
clerics.
about? The Illuminati?
Yeah, Illuminati
Okay.
vis-a-vis the Jesuits. So it was
Okay.
almost a faith-based. Essentially, what we're doing right now is creating a faith-based culture on this planet that is dealing from a God complex. I call it bibliopathy.
Biblia.
There's a
Break that one
sickness.
down. Break that
Well,
one down.
apathy being, sickness. So you figure, there is a cast of characters that is promoting a specific agenda that is couched in the need to help us against terrorism. But the agenda, I believe, is to retrofit this culture back into the days of the Inquisition. Because essentially most of what you're looking at, and that's what we're not looking at, and that's what gets me angry about most Christians, the way they're giving up freedoms for the sanctity of the church.
Okay.
I believe that most of the legislature coming out of government being now in the grip of fundamentalist Christians.
The religious right.
Right. What
Okay.
is religious right, I believe that...
Falwell?
Falwell, the person who's
How about the
Mason,
Mormons?
same people.
Okay.
What about the Masons? What's this Mason, Billy Graham?
Billy Graham's a Mason?
Oh, hi, Mason.
Is that right?
Yeah. And what is happening now...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And the whole usurping of the Council of Churches now coming under the Vatican. All of these, what we're looking at, and all of the laws being passed, the actual government being handed over to the executive branch.
Okay.
What we're watching essentially is the inculcation into our culture of an inquisitional form of government.
Okay.
And the inquisitional form of government is actually passing laws and legislation, as we are accustomed to.
Okay.
The executive branch is legislating. The executive branch is judging. So essentially now we have one government, one branch of government running everything under the context and the rubric of some side of security, war on terrorism / security. So
Right.
all legislation that's coming out now is based on the Inquisition. Watch what's going on. The taking away of your freedoms.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
the taking away of funds that would help the people, and creating a whole new nouveau poor. that is going to come out of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just saw how they just made a huge mistake with the transit authority. And you know what the amount of thieving that's
Well,
going on.
well, everybody knew that. Everybody
No,
knew that.
800 million. We're not even dealing with
Everybody knew that.
But no, not even. No. See, what it is you have to see it on TV before you believe it.
But
You see?
anybody in New York knew they were making a hand over fist.
Well, I won't say we, but being that the United States corporation is bankrupt and all other governments are bankrupt, would that have a play into why they're trying to change specific laws to have us fall into position behind it, putting us back into
Serfdom, yes.
Serfdom.
Yeah, it's a good point. What is happening actually? We're not looking at trends being formed. We don't study history. See, the places that we're bombing, they live history.
Okay.
Iraq lives history. Iran, these people know their history way back to their great, triple great grandfathers. We
Okay.
don't have a clue as to what's happening yesterday until the TV turns on and lets us know about it.
And that's a brainwashing.
So
in
we
itself.
have a super advanced, and this is what we were warned against. We have a super advanced technological civilization,
Mm-hmm.
but we are spiritual morons.
Okay.
We are religious fanatics,
Mm-hmm.
but intuitionally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So this paradox that the quote-unquote American represents is being played out all around the world now, and that paradox, that confusion in logic is now being assessed by everybody who is in the stands watching our activity on the world stage. You see.
Question came up last show about what do you do about this? Remember Veronica asked a question about, all this spirituality, where would you sit on the side and pray? And
Because we're actually talking about dependency and religion making you dependent for you not to actually come into your God self.
Right.
And action outside of that, because we already understand who are actually in position to actually stop us from getting to that apex. What do we actually do about it? And that's the whole problem. As far as picketing and things like that, those are ways of the old, but we put attention to that. But now, what's the next phase?
The next phase, and which is the greatest of the most, I would say, potent weapon that the people have
Mhm.
is their decision to not participate.
and
What-
not
see,
participating
the
meaning
problem is that we are participating in this, this.
With the battery.
Yeah, we are the energy to this madness.
you mean the spiritual people.
No, everyone is caught up in the mundane, everyday, matter-of-fact reality that was constructed for us.
Okay.
We come home, we go.
Oh, yeah,
go to
yeah,
sleep, boom,
okay,
boom.
all
So
right.
we are stuck in routine.
Okay.
The routine has now is actually the slave context that your elite have set for the thousand-headed ass to operate in.
Mm.
So now the thousand-headed ass is regimented, just like a donkey knows he got to get up a certain time. He
Yeah.
eats his oats.
Okay.
He goes out, plows the field. He goes back in. He may get a wash down, but he gets up the next day to do the same thing.
Brainwash.
Well, brainwashing is not. It's more subtle than brainwashing. It's essentially a conditioning process
Okay.
that is based upon you consciously wanting to deal with this.
Ah. Okay.
You see, and then you pass that
Mm.
particular work ethic on to your children.
Okay.
Make sure you go to
Ah.
school so you can get out and get a good job.
Right.
You know,
I
you get a
see.
career.
Okay.
So now the lords of the illusion
Mhm.
have played this particular game by keeping you trapped within the game plan.
Mhm.
So you feel that your
Right,
survival
right,
is
right.
based upon
Playing the
the,
game.
keeping this civilization up.
Okay.
So the civilization keeps me up. I must keep the civilization up.
Mhm.
When you are the battery that runs everything.
Okay.
If you don't participate, they being in the total minority,
Right.
if there is a mass conscious movement to just say, I am not participating, I'm not riding the subway, I ain't looking at your television,
Mhm.
I'm not buying your food, I'm not
Okay.
doing anything. And if I store up enough water to say I don't want to eat anything or go anywhere for a week to 2 weeks,
Mhm.
you can shut the country down.
Mm.
Complete fast, complete non-participation. With that now, the true evil will have to come to the surface because it needs your complicity to maintain its life force.
Right.
When you draw off or pull the plug on its life force,
it gets desperate.
Okay.
It can't move forward. It may be able to outlast you in the fact that they may have amenities put aside for just such a reality. But unless you are keeping this, let me just tell you, the economy and your society is a big circuit board.
Okay.
The whole thing is based upon electromagnetism and how electricity in a circuit works. Over
Magnetic
here,
energy.
you have
Okay.
economy. Over here, you have the import-export. Over here, you have military. You have all these different switches.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is switch off one, and it would affect you over here.
Okay.
So if you, being the energy that buys their goods, that keeps this circuitry going, that's why the money that they use is called a currency, because
Okay.
money is a current.
Mm-hmm.
And that money must keep moving. It must flow. In other words, they say if you make money, unless you spending it out to invest it, it's not coming back to you. It'll
Mhm.
die right there and it'll dry up. Well,
Okay.
if you hold on to your money and you do not spend or you keep the current moving, you can shut the system down. And then they will have to come to you and say, what do you want? But today you got people who are trained in the Jesuit schools, trained in schools of leadership, on how to get you to participate in the very slavery on different levels. So
Okay.
part of the slavery is marching.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the slavery is picketing. But how could you march for something and demand of your leadership when you have a contract in your pocket stating that you are a willing slave?
And that's your Social Security?
Social Security, you are a 14th Amendment willing slave. Your Social Security, your driver's license, your marriage license, your teacher's license. A license is permission to do something that the elite say is illegal.
That's right. That's what I wanted to ask you, brother.
Mm.
As far as the contracts are concerned, now when we're supposed to be bankrupt,
Mhm.
and we all hold these contracts and we hold them dear, and they give us privilege and they get take away the privilege,
Mhm.
and all of these different things that we afforded through these corporations.
Mhm.
As far as reparations are concerned, and our so-called leaders fighting for these reparations, how can they actually do that when property can't sue its owner?
It is.
So do they actually have a case?
No, because, and this is the illusion of the reparational movement. The people who are in charge of the movement are in bed with the very slave master. So how do you get
Oh,
them
wow.
to, so what they're doing is people are now rushing to the front of this reparational movement. I'm not talking about those who earnestly believe in their heart
Okay.
the pseudo-history about slavery on this country.
Right.
I'm talking about the people who are above, who will be assigned the task of managing this reparational movement, who has already cut a deal with the big house for what they will get should this thing become successful.
This is real?
Oh,
That's right,
are you
that's right.
kidding?
How can
Okay.
yeah.
First and foremost, brother, you know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
There's no way that you could demand of a bankrupt economy any money
Okay.
because we had no money. The land is ours. We don't have to demand it back as reparations. It's our land. As indigenous people, it is your land.
Mm-hmm.
You can reclaim it and get it back.
Okay.
But there are certain procedures that those who are in place to make sure you don't know that
Right. Right.
will keep you from understanding. And the people that they put at the head of this reparational bandwagon are lawyers. Those are the
Of
last
course.
people, the last people you ask to lead you in a fight for reparations. Because they are in bed with the king and the queen.
They give allegiance towards them before they give towards their own
Of
people.
course.
Right.
Correct.
So the client, it's dead in the water before it even gets started. It will raise consciousness about our history, which is actually a pseudo-history because the first slaves brought here were white people.
Mm-hmm.
The whole African diasporic movement and that war and the prisoners of war that were brought back, which is what we are. We weren't slaves, we were prisoners of war who were put into indenture.
Mm-hmm.
And these prisoners of war now were, the one thing that they did with prisoners of war is usually prisoners of war usually keep their identity. We did not have our identity because they stole the scientists, they stole the artisans, they stole the architects and the astronomers and the builders and the masons. That's who came over here.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that were over here, the ones who are the Africans or the Moors who were over here, we already had a quote-unquote capital. Remember I told you that George
Yeah.
Washington was essentially the 8th president. He was
Yeah,
not the
you never
first.
mentioned the presidents prior to him.
No, he was the first federal president.
Okay.
That's because we established the federal government.
What year is this?
Well, 70, 74, 70,
70,
76.
70.
But this is way before that. I mean, remember, they set up their own based upon their Gregorian calendar.
Because he actually wasn't the president until, what, 1778?
Yeah, 78 or 79. And it was actually John Henson that appointed him to be the
John
head
Henson.
of.
Welcome back. It was a slight interruption. Hopefully we have our audio together. And, you know, when we do important stories like this, you know, the powers to be come in and sort of throw in some interference. It never fails when I'm on the show. When we have tapes, there's always a glitch or what is that?
Huh?
What is it?
You
Who's
got
watching?
you have to exercise the place.
Is there
Perform
an
an
exorcism that we need to do
Perform an
here?
exorcism.
All right, let's get back to what we were talking about. You know what I'm really interested in is how a young man such as yourself is so up to date with all that we've been talking about. Him and I are old hands at this. I mean, we've been around a little while. But you as a youth, have you been here before? I mean, is this your second time here?
I believe so. I believe that I've been
you
here. Yeah, I believe that I've been here before, and I'm not here to repeat the same things again. So to take
Okay.
me over to the next paradigm, I just believe there's certain things that I'm just not going to come back for. And with the help of brothers like yourselves, it just I'm just in the right company.
Okay.
Your brother, by the way, is going to be studying to be a doctor. So,
Oh, hallelujah.
yeah, you know, even though
He's under your, so he is your protege.
no,
Well,
no,
I've studied under this man for years.
Well,
I
we're all
mean,
a student of Dr. Valentine.
that's right, that's right. This is
I
the
learn
master
something
right
new
here.
every time he comes here.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
This
How
brother.
do we reach the youth like Jonathan?
well, through Jonathan.
Through Jonathan. Okay. Well, I have Jonathan down here today, and trying to encourage him. I've introduced him to the most, dynamic producers down here, and hopefully these talents can be.
Well, I would like to
really
see.
utilized.
I would like to see the brother himself, you know, in your seat,
Okay.
doing things of
We
that
can do that.
nature. Yeah,
do that, sir.
and having young brothers and sisters like himself
Okay.
to kick it to the youth, because that's the underground, that's that untapped riches, that's
Okay.
the mother lode that is sitting there waiting for that for them to come to the surface. You know, they're to me, the youth brothers like himself are self-refining souls. These
Self-refining soul.
yeah, they just need what I call
That's
the
interesting.
SFS. These brothers and sisters, the SRS, they are the ones who essentially started this whole evolution quest that we're on, and they're coming back. And the ones behind him and those behind them, they're 10 times more advanced coming out of the womb today, and they're the ones that have the ability to put the brakes to this. And it is up to us to reach to them and to plant that seed before this beast has a chance to pervert the actual energy that these brothers and sisters are bringing forth today. You know.
Didn't we all have to come under the same sort of?
No, I think that some of us have came through certain gates, what I call gates of consciousness, when we came through the womb.
Okay.
We came in here knowing what the quest is supposed to have been about. The ones who didn't conform, the ones who dropped out early from the patterns that the society has set, because the inner soul has a template of thought that is already etched upon the soul before it returned back to the body. And of course, you know, the Bible took out, I think in one of the synods of I think 1304, they took out reincarnation. Matter of fact, in the Council of Trent, I believe they reinforced that all of the ancient books that they stole to make the Bible, they made sure that they effectively deleted all references to reincarnation. So I believe that young brothers and sisters like himself come back with a template already in place of an experience that they know that they have to achieve. And what is happening is they search for the stimulus in the form of the learning in order to begin to awaken those neurons that are seeking to grow
synaptic linkages in the
Mhm.
brain that would open up the door to that consciousness.
Fantastic.
Let me ask you a big question, big brother. As far as the 2012 experience that we're going to go through, as far as the
The what?
magnetics of the planet, 2012, as far as what's supposed to occur as a cosmic event.
Explain 2012.
Well, that is supposed to be the year where cosmic
2012.
alignment.
Year 2012.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I'm sorry. Where the Mayans reference and the Kemetic
Okay,
people
right. We
reference and
talked about
yeah, the
okay.
people that pretty much invented calendar
Okay.
before Gregorian and the other calendars that Europeans enforced upon us.
You explained the end of that of this consciousness.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
terminus.
Okay.
That's what I call the terminus.
All right.
And
Yeah, and the doors opening up until that 2012. The consciousness of the people that does that have anything to do with brothers and sisters like myself,
Mhm.
helping other people to identify with that before it comes, so they can
Right.
actually go through the experience also.
In other words,
Yeah.
its purpose on the planet.
Yeah, I would believe that young brothers and sisters are already. I believe that the whole Earth is already into its evolutionary cycle towards that end.
Mm-hmm.
We might have already ended the door because we can't trust the calendars, based upon the fact that the Roman Caesars would change the dates
Julius
as they
Caesar.
felt it.
Okay.
So we don't know what was done to juxtapose. Others who are in the metaphysical world know that we may be even following a time cycle that is not our own. In other words, we may be in an alternate time cycle that was that we were phased into in order to bring about another result.
Mm-hmm.
There are many little things that cue us to let us know that at December 21st, 2012,
Mm-hmm.
there is supposed to be an
the
event,
solstice.
is the event horizon to a reality that none of the seers can see beyond. But
None of the seers.
none of the seers that are presently here can see beyond.
Did Nostradamus go past 2012?
No, what happened is, I don't know if you ever heard of the Montauk experiment.
Montauk.
Montauk, right out here on Long Island.
Yeah.
Well, they,
No.
they did experiments in time travel
That's right.
On Montauk?
on Montauk, right at the tip of Montauk,
How recent is
underground base, back in the 70s,
Oh,
60s,
70s,
70s,
yeah.
80s.
I missed that one.
Yeah,
Wow.
what happened is,
Did you know about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we don't know about. Even
Yeah.
going back to Nikola Tesla, that goes
Tesla,
into free
yeah, I know
energy
about
and
Right.
different things like that. I mean, there's so many things that the government utilizes against us, and to go into the next paradigm, to try to you know, to try to become what we are actually supposed to be.
exactly.
You know, and so the Montauk experiment is a
Tell
perfect
me about
example.
the Montauk experiment.
Montauk was experimentation in time,
Time travel.
time shifting and time traveling. In
Mhm.
fact, it had to do with a chair that enhanced and advanced intelligence as well as psychic powers. And it was based upon our interaction with an interdimensional species who found us,
All right.
or who found a pathway and a rift into this dimension by way of an experiment that took place that became popularly known as the Philadelphia experiment, conducted by Nikola Tesla and
Okay.
Harriman and the rest of them. At the time when they did Montauk, they began to displace time and go forward and back, forward and back. And a lot of the experiments that came out of that operation are what the technologies of consciousness lockdown is
Mhm.
based on today.
Mhm.
And so, not trying to drift off the point, when they took the chair into the time sequence and they followed the present time track, they reached a black wall. There were no projected images based upon a course that a specific thought construct is supposed to live towards. In other words, the collective mindset of the planet has a projected end based upon its present operation.
Mhm.
They could not take it beyond. They couldn't take the present consciousness context, or the context of consciousness for the social order today. They couldn't take it beyond or see anything of it beyond 2012.
Mhm.
So what happens now is, are we running into a wall where there'll be an ecological event, a mass consciousness event, The event horizon hasn't given any clues. You see. So what we're doing now is we can only go back to our ancestors, the Olmec Mayans, who essentially put down the calendar. These were the calendar builders, who essentially would go from planet to planet, civilizations to civilizations.
The Mayans rather than Kemet?
Mayans. Oh, no. The Mayans were the timekeepers.
Okay.
They're the ones who would build civilizations that would give, it would be like they would build libraries. In other words, they would build whole civilizations, the whole pyramids and everything, but never live in it.
Okay.
So what they would do is build a library of consciousness so that those who would come behind them would decipher the work. And to decipher it, they would have to raise their consciousness in the doing. And in so doing, they begin to see their conditions before any cataclysmic events happen, or create such circumstances to sidestep those events. But what happened now is the Olmec Mayans put down this information for us to take in, and the government has taken that information, and now they supposedly sidetracked it and went back into 2013, 2021, and has sidetracked the timeline for this consciousness to end. And what the light workers have to do today is to start really working towards resurrecting the consciousness seed, which is what I call the Lazarus seed, so that we can actually begin to create the convolutions in the brain, the synaptic convolutions in the brain that would pick up the information from the sun and the stars and all of the ambient consciousness waves that are being broadcast to us on this planet. And now to actually seed that in our consciousness so that we know that, for instance,
How do you do this?
well, what you do is there are thoughts that come in our heads every day that we deny or we don't pay attention to.
Okay.
It is that lack of
right.
paying attention to it that is the light code broadcast.
Okay.
So sometimes you ever flip a switch on your radio,
Yeah.
and you're flipping the switch and you're going past, and you hear voices, but you don't hear the words. You know it's a voice, but you don't hear the word. That's what's happening to us. We are not picking up. We are very psychic creatures at this point, but we are not picking it up because we don't know how to pay attention.
Well, how did you get in tune?
Oh, I turned my TV off.
That's right.
And you too?
Pull the
Yeah,
plug.
that's right. Turn it off.
Pull your plug, pull your radio,
Turn
pull
your
everything.
television on.
Turn it
Pull
off.
all of it off.
All these different things about the war and all that. Turn it off.
Yeah, because these are the distractions that the adversary is putting up to keep you from developing those synaptic linkages.
Okay. Just
Remember.
stop watching television.
Yeah, stop watching. I mean, you could. I turn it on to see if anything changes, and the dialogue is just the same. It's one from one to the other.
So how are they going to watch the show if they don't watch television?
Well, tell them, to tune in for your show and then turn it back on, right?
Stay tuned there, 34 every Tuesday. Right here,
Yeah.
You got to tune in. Any questions you have for Dr. Valentine?
Yeah, well,
From a youthful standpoint.
yeah, well, one main
What
question,
do you
okay,
wanna know?
as far as the cosmic alignment is concerned, since we're on the same subject, 2012, more and more people, see, because I start to see that more and more youth, they really don't want to participate in anything. They don't want to go to work for those same type of jobs that their parents said that was good for them. They don't want to participate in any sort of governmental situations.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. We're in for another treat. Dr. Philip Valentine is back again to discuss what we've all been interested in, this new movie, The Matrix, Matrix 2. Somebody coming in? Come on in. Hurry up. We're taping. Oh, what do you go around the other way, please? We're in the middle of a tape. Go around the other way. No, go around the other place. Go ahead. I'm sorry. We had a slight interruption. But we're talking about this movie, The Matrix. Now, there's an interesting... Dr. Valentine, you gave a whole lecture on that, right? So give us an idea what this whole... what is it all about? Break it down for us. Now, we know about the whole idea of the Matrix is that it's the power of the will to control things.
No.
I'm way off.
I don't know if you ever saw a movie that was out once where they took a brain and put it into a fish tank, isolated it, and put these electrodes around it, and then began to pump information into the brain, stimulus into the brain, that made the brain believe that it was walking, that it was in Arizona, that it was in parts of in the ocean, on the boat. It gave tactile information through the brain to the brain, and allowed the brain, through the information being fed into it, to believe that the brain was having an outer tank or outer brain experience. Take that same movie scenario, because that's just like the Matrix was, and bring that back to us in the same way, and you will see that through our bodies and through television, through the food that we have been now given to eat, and the way that they have perverted the cellular structure, the DNA, and our genetic structure, how they're playing with the genetic codes. What they're doing is they are scrambling the brain's information processing centers, so that you don't understand or have an understanding of, or cannot have access to, the true reality that your experience, your physical experience, is supposed to be having. So where the soul uses the body as a vehicle, and the spirit uses the body as a vehicle of experience, in order to control the soul and to control the spirit, you use the vessel, you take control of the vessel, and then rearrange the instructions in the computer to make the vessel believe that the soul is having the experience that it was originally created to have. But meanwhile, you are what are called the STS versus the STOs. There's the creatures, entities who are alive in the universe, who are service to others and service to self. So the service to self entities live off of the way that your brain reacts to the input signals. In other words, they give you an input signal of a reality they want you to react to. As your energy in your body reacts to that, you give life to the artificial reality, giving it a reality for the body.
It sounds awful like Star Trek. I saw it.
Well, Star Trek is essentially a group of writers who examines the mind control tactics of the CIA and the MK Ultra and MK Delta. Yeah, and they pretty much go through a lot of the advanced sciences that a website called Leading Edge, and I suggest people to plug into Leading Edge magazine and to get hold of a lot of the old materials that they had there, because the research is progressive, cutting-edge material that I predict the government will probably shut down.
So all these movies that are coming out with these way out ideas are close to reality.
They are the reality.
Really are.
Yeah.
They are the reality.
They are the
Of the
reality
future.
of the future. The particular book I believe you should read, and this is the Leading Edge is a research consortium, and it's headed by a man named Valdemar Valerian. They call him Val Valerian.
Okay.
And he put out a book called the Matrix series. It's called the Matrix.
Okay.
And I believe there's a 1 through 6, if not 5. But I know that 1 through 4 is the most profound, progressive, cutting-edge research in technology and consciousness that has ever been put together in one set of manuscripts. 1 to 4, that is. The last book, called the Equividium, which was the last Matrix book, is where the Matrix 1 and 2 got all of their scenarios from.
The movie.
The movie.
Okay.
And anybody who I got a
some
verification.
playwright read these books and made these two movies?
Exactly. The Wachowski brothers are very much into metaphysics. And in fact, when they were making the movie, part of the requisite for the actors was to read books like the Book of the Coming Forth by Day, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Upanishads, the Vedas. All these books were part of the necessary preliminary work that the actors had to do in order to get into the mind frame.
Well, you know, people are calling from our previous shows asking for materials like this. So it's good that you're going over these books so we can understand that a lot of these movies coming out have important information that we need to decipher We need to get away from the fantasy of it all.
Well, they couch it in fantasy. you see.
Yeah. So it's
But the
unbelievable.
reality is being given to you in the fantasy so that your mind is processing the fantasy as fantasy, not realizing it's the reality.
Okay.
So what you're living is the illusion.
Exactly.
So in other words, in Matrix 2, for those who understand, the secret is that everything happening in the movie is Neo.
It's Neo's thought.
Yeah, is Neo's experience with itself. It's God's experience with itself.
Okay.
And all of the different ways that Neo being, they said, the sixth experiment, or the sixth Neo. Well, that's in everyone who...
Six Neo meaning the
There were
six
5 Neos before him.
that tried
That's
to
how
be
the
the
story.
second coming?
No, well, there were 5 Neos that came before him that essentially had to end up facing the mainframe, who essentially is the Godhead, who the architect was. And that is Masonic in its own right. Anything calling itself the architect is Masonic.
Okay.
So those who are looking at the Matrix, and when Neo finally, after all of his tests, finally gets to the door of light, which is a pineal gland, he runs to the architect. He comes face to face, essentially, with himself. In other words, Neo is God's agent to find out about itself.
Right.
So as Neo comes back to report, each of the time he comes back, it comes back a little smarter. That's why he had to be, I don't know if you saw the movie, he talked about how smart Neo was at not being fooled by what he was saying. So Neo, the sixth Neo, represents the sixth root race, which is what is now being born.
Now being born.
Right, now being born. The
So
sixth
you and
root
I
race.
the fifth race?
Well, no, we're coming out of the fifth root race, the race of belief, the race of the baser chakras, and we're going into the brow chakra, which is the sixth root race.
Okay.
Or essentially, the 5 Neos before that represents the 5 senses that have now evolved into the sixth sense, which is the sixth Neo.
Not chakras.
Well, essentially, yeah, we're talking 7 being the chakras. So you're saying Neo is 3 words. Remember, Neo is 3 in 1 as well. So is Trinity. So Trinity and Neo are 1. So Neo is Neo, Eon, right? And Neo, Eon, and hold on, Neo, Eon, and the 1. So you have 1, the new Eon of the 1. That's
Neo is 4 letters.
the 3 letters. Neo
Neo
is Neo.
Is the way they spell his name?
That's right. Neo is Neo.
I'm thinking Neo.
No, his name is Neo. Neo.
I'm thinking it's Neo.
Yeah, but it's a play on words because Neo means the new eon of the 1. So the 1 of the new eon. So 1 of the new eon. O-N-E, N-E-O, E-O-N. So that's essentially what people, the metaphysicians are. This is a play of words. But Neo is the Trinity, and his expression, which is the one thing he had to learn in his 6 senses and the 6th root race, was love. So Trinity represents the love that he discovered inside of himself, one that was
With the girl.
unconditional with her.
Right.
So she is going to be the traitor of the next movie.
And God is love.
Well, I'm just saying that Neo is going to betray.
But is that the
I
essence?
mean, Trinity will betray.
Is that the biggest lesson
Zion.
that he had to learn? Is that God is love?
Well, yeah, he, essentially, all of what he is actually seeing is God's attempt to discover the love of itself. Because God doesn't know anything. God is a blank computer. In other words, God is perfection. And remember in the movie when the architect was speaking to Neo, Neo, he said the first matrix was perfect. Okay, if the first matrix was perfect, that was the beginning of the sentence. At the end of that same paragraph he spoke, he said its perfection matched its total debacle. So if it was perfect, why did it fall? So there are so many different metaphysical analogies being played in about how the mind of God works through the mind of man.
Explain metaphysics for people that don't quite understand. You're a metaphysician.
Mm-hmm. Metaphysics represents meta being Greek, meaning meta meaning beyond or above or beyond,
Okay.
and physics being that which is tangible. So So it's the study of the invisible realm. It's the study of cause, because we live in a realm of effects. And what happens is, if you go into the movie again, you notice that the Merovingian, which was another trigger word for those who understand the Illuminati, that the Merovingians said that that if you don't know the why behind everything, then you know nothing. Right. So it's all cause and effect. Okay. So as a metaphysician, I see effects, but I don't look at them for what they are trying to present. I look at the motivation behind that particular event, because I study the cause of that event. When you study the cause of the event, then the event takes on a superficial realm. And this is what we've been taught to become preoccupied with, the superficial. We are being taught to become ensconced and entranced by the effects, as if the effects were the reality, when those who are the puppet master manipulating the causes are the true monsters behind it all. So I study the realm of cause, and I teach people how to decode the effects to get to the realm of cause. So the whole Matrix movie was study of the realm of cause, which is why it went over the head of the majority of the people. They loved it for the action sequences and so forth, but that had nothing to do with it. It had a lot to do with how religion has become the pyra of man's consciousness. If you looked at the different ways that they structured the adjectives around the descriptive adjectives around each of the people. So you see, Neo was hope.
Right.
Trinity was love.
Okay. That was
Morpheus, yes, Trinity was his girlfriend.
Right.
Morpheus is faith.
Right.
Because he had faith in this man being the one. You notice the boy Link was trust. So each one had these human qualities that were anthropomorphically being played out on the screen. You see. So when each one were tested, like at the end of this particular part 2 of the movie, Morpheus's faith is being tested.
Right.
You see? Neo doesn't know that he is going to be the hope of everyone tomorrow in Zion. Because remember, in the movie it said that Zion was destroyed 5 times before. So when he made the choice to go to Trinity, he knew that you could destroy Zion, but you could always rebuild Zion. But you could never rebuild on love, and he chose love. He chose Trinity at the end, which meant he chose the love which could rebuild Zion. So, in other words, he didn't go back just to fight like the others did, because that destroyed Zion. He went to reinforce the love that was going to save Zion. He made the proper choice at that time. But of course it didn't look like that, because now in part 3 there will be a betrayal, a second betrayal, and a third betrayal, because of course we know that a virus has been seeded into Zion through Mr. Smith, who now represents purpose.
Who was Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith is the one he fights, the thousands of them that he fights against.
Right, Mr. Smith.
Right. He represents purpose.
Okay.
So each one of the characters are playing out a specific one of the colors of the rainbow of human emotions. And each one of them now is now coming to the architect, which is the cold perfection that is God. God being perfect does not know itself. In fact, it's static. It doesn't have the life. The feminine principle, which is the oracle, represents the heart or the in-depth look. She is supposedly the mother. But then he said, no, it wasn't the oracle, so we begin to believe that it's actually Trinity or someone else who's the mother of the Matrix. So now we're being left with that little conundrum to think about. Was it the oracle who was the mother of the Matrix, or is it Trinity that's the mother of the Matrix?
But she told Neo that he wasn't the one.
No, she said that in the beginning because he didn't know what he wanted yet. Until he understood who he was, then he knew, because in part 2, she said, because you're the one.
First one.
Right, that was the first one. But in the second one, she said, I'm beginning to have faith in you. And then he did something at the end that was completely out of whack, because at the end, when he was back into the so-called real world, he took the powers that he was supposed to be only in that virtual world and brought it back to the world of illusion and stopped the Squiddies with his power. Knocked him into a coma, of course. But then he went right back into the blackness, which essentially is where God is. See, again, it's all the play of, it's a deep metaphysical, this guy, whoever wrote this, whoever these guys would have wrote this, they put deep study into understanding the principle of Melchizedek and the dark matter.
From here?
Yeah, most likely. If not, then these messages are being used to wake up the sleepers. And that's another thing I was telling people. I began telling people that the movie is seeded with MK Delta strobe triggers for the brain. In other words, there are certain sequences of events, certain light pulses and strobing, certain cadences by the voices of the characters as they were speaking, especially Morpheus. Morpheus spoke in a drone. Notice that when the Squiddies were burrowing into Zion, there's this circle that was making a circle, this fire circle. That's an entrainment tool that people who want to hypnotize...
Explain to people exactly what this does to people.
Well, the movie was meant to entrain you. For instance, the love scene between Neo and Trinity. Musical information during the time when the Kundalini was rising, that was a symbol of Kundalini.
Right, right.
So when Neo and Trinity, you know, the one in the three and the three in the one, essentially the making love was Neo being the one in the three, which is the Trinity. The Trinity is one and three. And that particular realization of the three and the one and the one and the three is based in Kundalini, which is represented in sex. Now, they didn't show you any very graphic, gross...
One to three. Explain that.
Well,
how is it
what is it they tell you in Christianity about the three aspects of God? Remember what they say, that God is three, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost?
Right.
Well, that's supposedly representative of the Trinity, which is Osiris, Isis, and Heru.
Okay.
But of course, they took out the feminine factor, which is exactly what it is that a society based in homosexuality would have done. So you have two males, which is the Father and the Son. And you got a Holy Ghost, which is what? Where is the female element inside of God?
The Holy Ghost was the feminine.
No, then why didn't they just say the Holy Mother? Because you know that there can't be a son without a mother.
Right.
But only in this society is the Christian supposed to believe that the Father created a son without a mother. So that's the stupidity of religion, especially Christianity, when they suspend logic and expect people to believe something without investigating what is being said. In every aspect outside of European Roman religion that we have now inherited as Christianity, everyone has a mother principle in God. Every one of the black races, the dark races, know of what the mother principle is. And not once do you see the same kind of representation of the feminine principle here, which is why we are so crazy as we are as Christians. We don't know, well, who the Christians have become, but they don't know who they are. They don't understand the feminine principle of God. Whenever the woman is looking for the aspects of God, she still calls to he. Why can't she call upon the she principle, which she is the direct representation of? Why can't she say, well, I talked to God and she said? It's always what he said or what Jesus said or what a male said, which is fine, because the spiritual side of the brain, which is the right brain, is masculine. The physical side, which is the matter side, is feminine.
Right.
So it's fine, but that's what the secret is. The secret is that as males, we must cross over to understand the heart side, and she must cross over to understand the spiritual side. So in understanding how we play with one another, and we don't give the proper verification of the feminine principle of God, we are now being called, now being represented as, druids or I was on a radio show I did out in California when I spoke about the female menstruation cycle as being a point of degeneration of the whole total humanity, being represented in the woman as the menstruation cycle, because she is the litmus for what happens, that shows what happens to humanity. How her body goes, so goes humanity.
Right.
So in the bleeding process, humanity began to degenerate completely. She never bled before.
You're saying the societies that deny the feminine aspects normally fall.
That's the persecution. Of course, that's the true persecution.
Okay.
Of course, the same thing with Islam. We think that now there's a lot of brothers running over to Islam as if that's the counterplay, but they both are ruled by Rome. Islam is run by Rome. In fact, I was telling you last time.
Islam?
Yes, because it was the Pope who gave permission to Islam to be practiced here on the continent of the United States after the conquest of the Moors. And you know that all of the so-called patriarchs of Christianity are in Islam. And the same patriarchs are in Judaism. So it's these three that are causing the madness and the grief that we're suffering from on the planet. And of course there's going to be brothers that says, no, it's not, that's not the true Islam. Of course it's not true Islam. Just like this isn't true Christianity. But many people are being murdered in that name.
Now, a lot of people wonder why you talk so much about Christianity. But I also, I give them your reference that you started out as almost becoming a priest. So you studied all this.
I did.
Right? So you're a product of
the Roman Church.
of a Christian
The
upbringing.
Roman Church, yes.
And you found out through your early training that they were feeding you nothing but lies.
Lies. And the thing is, it's not even a lie, it's more insidious than a lie. It's the lie that's sugar-coated with parts of the truth. So, you know, you say that's a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Right.
Well, to get you to deal with the bitterness of this lie, they had to sugarcoat it with some of the truth.
Okay.
So it was easy for you to get past your palate, but once it was in your stomach, it's already done the damage. It's been doing the damage to our minds as people. When religion dies, humanity rises as a total species of consciousness.
Okay.
Because spirituality is lost in religion. Religion becomes a technical basis for your belief structuring only, not your spiritual awareness.
Okay.
Because religion makes you dependent, whereas spirituality creates your independence.
Because of all the devils in the church.
Well, the devil's in the church. Essentially, a church is a body. It's just simply another word for body. Now, isn't the body of man, wasn't Jesus Christ called the Son of Man? Then if that's the case, then he was the son of a collective, not the son of one God. And if he was also the son of man, that meant man is God. See, so we're not taking in the proper descriptions of what the church is trying to keep you locked down in.
But people...
Most of us blacks, or Negroes as he called us, really thought we were free, without being aware that in our subconscious, all those chains we thought had been struck off were still there. And there were many ways where what really motivated us was our desire to be loved by the white man. Malcolm meant to lance that sense of inferiority. He knew it would be painful. He knew that people could kill you because of it, but he dared to take that risk.
He was saying something over and above that of any other leader of that day, while the other leaders were begging for entry into the house of their oppressor. He was telling you to build your own house.